Here is my finished story map. Landscape's Greatest Hits, 10 Landscapes of Wonder and Change. Remember the titles and the text that we were looking at before? Here's how it looks inside my story map. If I skip to the first one, remember how we talked about how I had the scale change? Here's the resulting topographic map at the proper scale. So if I look at karst, and this is one of my all-time favorite topographic maps and karst landscapes in south central Indiana. But if I look at each one of these, it zooms me to the proper scale, so I can look at eskers and oxbow lakes and plate boundaries and so on. So I can navigate here with the thumbnails, or I can navigate on the map. Now I don't have to keep that scale, of course. I can zoom out. So now that this is done, you can access it too on josephkursky.com/storymaps/10landscapes. I mentioned earlier that you could use Dropbox to host your story maps. In your Dropbox account, find the public folder. Here's mine. The public folder lets you easily share single files in your Dropbox. Any file you put in this folder gets its own internet link so that you can share it with others, even non-Dropbox users. These links work even if your computer is turned off. Step 1. I dropped files into the public folder. I copied all my contents in my 10 Landscapes folder into a folder I created on Dropbox called 10 Landscapes. I then right-click or control-clicked this file. Then I chose Dropbox, Copy Public Link. This copies the internet link to my file so that I can share it with you. Let's take a look at what that looks like. See this Dropbox.com URL? So this whole thing is living out on Dropbox. Now there's nothing magical about Dropbox, it's just a convenient way for you to store some web files. And you can use other places too, as long as the public can access them. Before I let you go, I want to show you two other story maps I created with this same template. The Map Tour template. First, Lost Detroit. I'm very keen on enhancing what students are reading with maps. Fiction and nonfiction. There's lots you can do. In this case, I read about some of Detroit's famous abandoned buildings from a spatial perspective. I want the students to dig into the physical, economic, and social causes of urban abandonment and their results. To explore further, read the book for yourself by D. Austin called Lost Detroit. Photos by S. Dorr. Fascinating. What is the pattern? What is the spatial pattern of some of these buildings? And why does it matter? What are some famous places in your own community that you'd like to preserve? The second map I'd like to show you is 20 on 40. 20 stops along 40 degrees north latitude. This is a tour of 20 points along 40 degrees north latitude across the USA. I took these photographs myself, and I want the students to look at it from a spatial perspective. What are the changes in vegetation, climate, landforms, and land use that they observe as we move from, say, west to east, as I'm doing here? Why does this variation occur? You'll notice that in this case, I actually have the thumbnails different from the main photograph. In the main photograph, as I'm doing right here, I'm looking at issues of, for example, irrigation on the Colorado High Plains. Underneath it, the photograph that I have for the thumbnail is actually me on these different places. So it provides a little bit of variability. What I'm getting at is that this main photograph does not have to match the photograph that you have below it. So there's lots you can do there. And again, you can examine the landforms and land use cover by changing the scale here. And now we can look at how the landscape varies, for example, across Pennsylvania toward the eastern part of this tour. And they're not all rural landscapes. The last one that I have before we hit the Atlantic Ocean is actually on a golf course. Now, I encourage you. You go out and create your own story maps and tell others what you have created. Use these templates as I have done here. And I encourage you to tell your stories with maps and have the students tell stories with maps. These stories can be about our fascinating planet, it can be about your neighborhood, it could be about climate, it could be about landforms, land use, history, geography, current events, energy, water, political instability, and lots more. The possibilities here, folks, are endless. So dig into storytelling with maps, the Esri story maps.